Hello and welcome to another episode of Editing in Camera Raw and Photoshop with raw files. So I'm just going to take this raw file and place it back into Photoshop. You'll probably have remembered this file from the last episode. We edited only in Camera Raw. So I'm just going to make some quick adjustments. And what my plan is to kind of make edits in Camera Raw, what we've been doing, but also then edit into the actual Photoshop program itself. So what I'm just going to do is just bring about some files here and there, some adjustments, sorry, here and there, just to make sure that we have a file that I'm happy to work with. I'm going to go back into sharpening, just going to make that maybe say 50, bring the luminance to about, let's just zoom in on those trousers again. And let's just kind of get rid of the noise without ruining the folds in the trousers. And let's bring the color up so we can get rid of any of the greens and reds. We could just zoom back out. I think that looks quite nice. I might need to make this just a slight bit brighter, so I might bring it up by a third of a stop. And then at the same time, I'm going to try and just try and give it a rotation. As you can see that the waterline and the building are just not aligned, and there we go. So we have a straighter building, we have a flatter river edge, and I think we have an image that we could work with. Now normally we'd just press save image and we'd have a JPEG that we could play with. And then we just hit cancel and done. For our purposes this episode, we're just going to click on open image. What this actually does is that it opens the image inside Photoshop. So we're still not done yet, we're still editing. Most of the time, about 80% of my time anyway, I would have just edited this and then it was fine, and in Camera Raw I would hit save image and then it's done. But for the time being, I really want to go into detail. And one of the first things I do when I go into Photoshop is I go to something called the spot healing brush. It's activated when you press J. It's one of the first things I go to. If you hold down the mouse button on it, you'll actually get a whole bunch of other tools. And they all pretty much do the same thing. 95% of the time, I'm using spot healing brush, and then I only change it for very specific things. And I'll probably talk you guys through that. But first things first is we're going to play with the spot healing brush. So let's get into this. I'm just going to zoom in, and you'll see that I tend to get very, very picky about certain things. And the reason why I get picky about certain things is because it's very, very important to give the best possible quality images to a client, especially if they're paying you a lot of money for it. So what you could probably do is I could press right bracket or left bracket to make the brush bigger or smaller. I could also go up here and bring up the sliders so I can make the size bigger or smaller and so on. While I'm here, I could also right click and bring up the menu here so I could change the size as I need to. I'm a keyboard person, so I tend to move, so you'll probably hear me clicking on my keyboard. And I'm just going to get started. So I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to brush over certain areas that I'm not completely happy about. Going in, just looking at the finer details to make everything just smoother, make it look like as if this is probably their best day of their lives. They've had a good pamper, they've probably been to a sauna, they've been taken care of, and they've had a stress-free couple of days before the wedding. So then everything looks, everything on them looks as if they're fresh and really healthy. And that's pretty much my motto when it comes to editing. Like, what would you do if you had some makeup and some rest, and what would you look like after that? So I'm just going in, and I normally just go after some moles here and there. Nothing super special. I can go into here, just bring out some of these things. And this is also something that you could also talk to the client about. Is it something that they want to be edited out? You can also ask clients to say, like, is there something that you want me to not photograph? Something that you want me to avoid taking photos of? And if you can't avoid it, then maybe you should be editing. Now, normally I draw the line at this because this is as far as I go when it comes to editing. I'm only going in for small blemishes, small marks, things that probably, normally on a good day is not apparent. And I will go through clothing as well to make sure if there's any string sticking out. Sometimes I might notice that there is a bit of dust on someone's jacket, on a cuff. At times, I'd also change the time on some people's watches. That's another tutorial for another day. But that's if you really want to be pedantic. For example, you're trying to fake a specific time to basically make the day look like as if it was a magical, amazing day. So I'm looking for any kind of inconsistencies, markings, blemishes, things that probably stand out, and yeah, and I'm just trying to clean up everything. Now, you want to make sure that you don't overdo it, otherwise you will come across some issues. For example, here, this is the 5% of the time I will switch to, say, the patch tool. I'm just going to either copy this out, bring this over, and kind of make something out of it. Or what you can do is, and this is probably one of the things I tend to do, is use not content aware, sorry, my bad, is I go into a selection tool. Okay, I select this, and if I hit backspace, it brings up something called fill. And I use content aware, I keep it at 100% and everything's normal, and I hit OK, and it kind of gets rid of it a little bit. I could probably do a little bit more to it just to kind of clean it up, so it hides the fact that there were bins there. It kind of makes it smaller, and you kind of have to do it several times if you really need to, and that kind of cleans it up a little bit. I'll probably get rid of this as well. So what I'm doing is, this is pretty much very similar to the spot healing brush, but this time I'm making a selection using the lasso tool. So I'm going back and forward, trying to look for things that might stand out, that might kind of ruin the image, or some people might be wondering what's that in the background. To me, the backgrounds are very important. Things like that. You can get cleaner backgrounds like this if you really want to. Some people think it's a little bit OCD or a little bit too much, but when it really comes down to it, people who are paying a lot of money for a photo are very picky, and they also look at things like, oh, what's that thing there? I don't know what that is. And for example, this little shape here, it's been bugging me a little bit. I know it's an air vent, but might as well just get rid of it because it seems like we don't have enough information other than we know it's part of the building, and some people might not like that. So we just get rid of this bit here. There we go. And we've kind of cleaned up a little bit here. We're almost done. And, oops, sorry, there we go. And as we go back out, we have now a very, very, very clean image. So I'm just going to hit File, Save. Let's see where it is. Here we go, Save As. And we're going to save it as RAW and Photoshop. RAW and Photoshop Edit. And we're pretty much done. We're just going to hit Save. Go to go for the maximum, and everything's pretty much optimized, and hit OK. And here's the save. And when we minimize, we've got ourselves now an image that is very, very, very clean. Very nice. We still have this banding, which we'll try and get rid of some other time, but we got an image that we really like. There are no spots in the bride's arm. We've kind of cleaned up the cuffs. We've cleaned up the bridge that's closest to us. We've cleaned up a bit of the background, and we're pretty much happy with that. So that is the end of the episode. See ya.